Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge news, and I touched upon this in the past couple of segments on the Durham Probe Special Counsel. John Durham has 5 people, or 5 witnesses, pleading the fifth. 1 witness ready to testify, in addition to a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and possibly a witness at Fusion GPS. So you have numerous witnesses. Now, the 5 witnesses that pleaded the fifth and refused to cooperate with the Durham Probe Special Counsel are the researchers that Michael Sussman and Tech Executive One hired and worked with to fabricate user-created data, or to engage in surveillance of Trump Tower, Trump's apartment, the executive office of the president while Trump was president, and a healthcare provider. And if there's a wonderful, highly educated, liberal Democrat, morally superior always, who is saying none of this is true, it's within the documents, the court papers, the indictments, within the factual background, and within the indictment of Michael Sussman. All of this is public record. And your inability, if you are a wonderful Democratic loyalist, your inability to understand basic logic or to read court documents is not the problem of people who actually report and talk about this and give analysis. Now, there's a wonderful, legal scholar. His name is Jonathan Turley. Subscribe, or actually, you can go on his website, jonathanturley.org. In addition to Technofog on Twitter, I don't have Twitter, I don't have Facebook, but every once in a while you have some great profiles. He's a great profile. He has a Substack. So Technofog has a Substack that you should subscribe to. Jonathan Turley is a great legal scholar, renowned legal scholar. He has his own website, jonathanturley.org. Durham, 5 witnesses connected to the Clinton campaign's false Russian claims have refused to cooperate. Why is this important? This is extremely, extremely important and a huge development for the following reasons. I have been saying on this channel for a long time, and I've written about this in the Federalist. You can go to my website to read my writing on The Hill, the Huffington Post, Salon, the Jerusalem Post, the Federalist, other publications. But if you go H.A. Goodman Federalist on Google, you will see my writing about the Durham probe in 2019. I talked about how 18 U.S. Code 371 could be used to charge Comey and McCabe and others. But what Durham is doing is the following. He understands that in 2016, loyalists within the United States government, let's say James Baker, let's say Comey, Strzok, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, all of them, people who were loyal or who didn't want Trump as president, they worked alongside, or you could say conspired with, but they accepted information, absurd allegations, baseless claims, like the truth about Hunter and James and Joe and Madam Secretary, the truth about them in the emails, like that they write, that's viewed as, absurd nonsense. It's baseless. You can't prove anything, even though we caught them with their hand in the cookie jar and their emails actually show they cheated Bernie Sanders. And of course, Democrats then paint that as some other plot of another government to inform you of the corruption within the Democratic Party. Here you have the Durham probe has to do 2 things. 1, separate the government from the people hired by Clinton. 2, make sure both turn on one another. That is huge, and I'll explain that in a moment. Hit subscribe to this channel. Ladies and gentlemen, my latest segment on Indict and Imprison 45 channel. Definitely check that out below. It's hilarious. You'll love it. I basically I become the personification, or I'm acting and pretending to be this wonderful liberal Democrat and just a wonderful person who thinks that Trump should be charged for every crime that's ever been committed. So it's pure satire. It's comedy. You'll love it. People really like it. I have I'm doing one every single day because it's actually a catharsis for me. So definitely check that one out. The stock market, that's below in the pinned comment, the stock market crash channel is going to be revived and resuscitated once again. I will be doing a segment every single day starting either today or tomorrow, but be on the lookout for the stock market crash channel. Tell your friends about it. Hit subscribe. Our economy, equities, everything from cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, stocks, everything's going to tank and collapse. Unfortunately, we have a derivatives nightmare. Hedge funds will probably go under, like Archegos the other year, and inflation skyrocketing. And I talked about this. GDP, we're contracting, we're entering into a recession. I talked about that in my Federalist article below in the pinned comment. I predicted all of this. But hit subscribe to those two channels below in the pinned comment. Hit subscribe here. If you want to support my work, my Patreon is below. Ladies and gentlemen, five witnesses, researchers, who were tasked with and hired to obtain data on Trump, eventually, along with Tech Executive One and Michael Sussman, provided user-created, quote-unquote, user-created data. And the really, really interesting thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this is like this amazing, like, Byzantine labyrinth of deceit and criminality. And I remember there was a Washington Post article saying, oh, Hunter's finances, it's a Byzantine network. When you engage in corruption, there are so many things you're doing. In this case, Clinton hired, and the Democratic Party hired, through a law firm, people to compile a dossier called the Steele dossier. It was with help from intelligence sources from you-know-where, the same country invading a country now in the worst geopolitical nightmare in modern European history. Under the watch of mashed potato brains and all the adults in charge, Democrats in the House, Senate, and the executive. So all of this is taking place while Joe, our beloved president, mashed potato brains, is in the executive office. Madam Secretary hired. She hired attorneys, tech people, third-party tech firms, opposition research firms to create a false, absurd, deceitful narrative. What the narrative was is the following: that Trump was installed by the Kremlin, and that he was communicating with them, and that he was basically a candidate favored by another hostile country, and tens of millions of people believed this. They believed this because the operatives, whether it was Michael Sussman or other people within that law firm he worked for, or tech executives, or people that they hired to create these dossiers and these absurd stories, they funneled all this, they disseminated all this information to media and, most importantly, to government agencies. People like James Baker met with Sussman. Michael Sussman was indicted for apparently or allegedly lying to James Baker, the FBI top legal counsel, saying that he wasn't meeting to give absurd, myths about Trump with a server and Alpha Bank, this bank in Moscow that he was communicating with, which never happened, along with an endless stream of absurd stories that never happened with Trump. But you have the morally superior, wonderful, liberal voters believing all of this, and then they claim that Trump supporters believe absurd theories. They're the ones who believe only deceitful, absurd hoaxes and myths pertaining to Trump. And then they complain about the same thing. But anyway, those people that worked for the Democratic Party, they fed lies and deceitful statements that they knew to be false. So 9 minutes in, we finally get into it. They knew these statements were false. That's a crime. When you're knowingly giving government agencies false information simply to go after your political opponent. Now, the government officials knew that. They didn't care. They wanted a pretext just to investigate Trump because they didn't like Trump. Clapper, Brennan, Comey, Strzok, McCabe, they weren't apolitical. They were President Obama's intelligence chiefs and officials. If Trump did the same thing, they would say, they were Trump's administration going after an incoming candidate. With media and Democrats, it's a clear distinction. Well, President Obama had nothing to do with it, even though James Clapper, with just a little heat, Clapper then folded and said, well, we were doing it because President Obama told us. That was he wasn't even pressured by media or whatever. The first thing was, well, we were told to do so. And so what Durham is doing is the following. He is trying to give the government an avenue to just distance themselves from corrupt behavior of Trump's direct political rivals, of the Democratic Party, the Clinton campaign, that funneled information to government officials. The government officials shouldn't have accepted this information. Comey, Baker, all of them, McCabe in notes within the latest filing, knew that the Steele dossier was compiled to just dig up dirt on Trump and get them to investigate Trump. But they did so anyway, under the absurd notion that, the Russians were interfering in 2016. Interfering is a euphemism for finding out the corruption within the DNC that cheated Bernie Sanders. Nobody interfered with 2016. Not one country, not one person. Whether a country bought Facebook ads is irrelevant because Facebook ads didn't swing even to one vote. Not even one person looked at an ad and said, gee, I'm going to vote for Trump over Clinton. People knew that Bernie Sanders was being cheated. The DNC emails just bolstered that fact. And when the emails came out, I remember when I was on the far left, I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. I remember I was on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter now or Facebook, but I remember hearing from people, oh, that's all you have? That's all you have? Oh, that's nothing. So then Democrats went from that's all you have to, oh my God, they tried to interfere, the Putin. So they're all over the place. Imagine if they lose again to Trump. They're going to do the same things. They're going to say the same things that they accuse the Orange Menace of saying and doing. Okay? They have zero value system in terms of a consistent type of logic or ideology. It's what's ever politically expedient at that moment. They will then 100% focus and passion and energy with laser focus. They will then say, oh my God, oh my God. Democrats without social media algorithms, that's why they're so petrified that Elon Musk might allow other opposing viewpoints on Twitter. Twitter always bans anybody that opposes the mainstream, blessed and sanctioned by the Democratic Party and Republicans like Kinzinger and Cheney. That's not reality. These people pushed for the Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld quagmires and endless conflict, counterinsurgency wars. These people pushed for the end of the U.S. economy, which now has led to, and I explained that in the Federalist article below in the pinned comment, inflation skyrocketing, recession imminent, stock market crash on the horizon that I'm predicting, and gas prices, energy prices through the roof. This is what happens when the adults are in charge. But what Durham is doing is pitting the government against operatives. That's what he's doing. He's trying to get both to turn on one another, and it won't be difficult. Now, he's siding with the government because he's part of the government now, which could shield Comey, but won't shield McCabe and others. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. He's pinning both sides together. When the researchers pled the fifth, you have one researcher who's going to spill the beans, and maybe a Fusion GPS employee, maybe a special agent of the FBI, also going to say, hey, listen, these people knew what they were doing when they gave information, false information, and lies to the U.S. government to investigate Trump. Then you have a whole bunch of people in legal jeopardy, including Madam Secretary, including top Democrats, and especially attorneys at that law firm. Hit subscribe right now and go to the Indict and Imprison 45 channel below. Thank